The train station café was nearly empty that late afternoon, the soft golden light spilling through the tall windows and falling across the polished wooden floor. I had come here for the quiet, for a moment to myself before the train arrived, but it seemed the universe had other plans. I had barely settled into my corner seat, my navy blue dress brushing the edge of the chair, when I noticed her. Isabel. She moved like she owned the space before she even touched it, every step deliberate, heels clicking softly against the floor. My chest tightened instantly. There was something in the way she carried herself, bold, commanding, that made my knees feel weaker than they should. Her dark brown dress fit her perfectly, sleek and elegant, hugging her curves while still radiating authority. Long black hair tumbled over her shoulders, catching the sunlight and adding a subtle shimmer. She looked directly at me before I even noticed her approaching, and something inside me shifted. My heartbeat accelerated. I could feel her gaze like a physical touch, heavy, unyielding, impossible to ignore. Every instinct in my body screamed to look away, but I couldn't. I was rooted in place, captivated even before a word was spoken. When she finally reached my table, she didn't smile like other people might. Instead, she gave me a measured, knowing look, the kind of look that tells you she knows exactly what you're thinking and feels no obligation to care. Her presence alone was commanding. "Luna," she said, her voice low, smooth, confident. I shivered at the sound of my name on her lips. "Yes." I managed to whisper, my throat suddenly tight. She didn't answer verbally. Instead, she slid into the chair across from me, her dark brown dress moving fluidly, brushing the polished table. The air between us thickened immediately. My hands trembled lightly on the table, gripping the edge of my navy blue dress, as if holding onto it could anchor me. Isabel leaned forward slightly, just enough to close the distance, her eyes fixed on mine, unblinking and intense. "You're alone," she stated. Not a question. A fact. Dominant, undeniable. And I couldn't deny it. I am, I whispered, the sound catching in my throat. My body was already betraying me, reacting to her nearness, my pulse racing, my stomach twisting. Her hand reached across the table with deliberate slowness, not touching me yet, just hovering above my wrist. I could feel the heat radiating from her even before she made contact. And then her fingers brushed mine lightly, a gentle claim, enough to make my chest tighten. I realized immediately that she wasn't here to ask for permission. She didn't need it. "You look like you could use some company," she said, though her words felt like a formality. Her dominance wasn't in her speaking. It was in the way she occupied space, in the tilt of her head, in the pressure of her gaze. I nodded slightly, unsure if I could form proper words.
My throat felt dry.
My hands curled around the edge of the table, and yet I wanted her to take control, to guide me, to tell me what to do, or better, to do it for me. She leaned closer, her hand finally resting lightly over mine, her touch firm but not forceful. The warmth of her skin was intoxicating. She didn't squeeze, but the mere presence of her hand over mine was enough to make me shiver. My knees felt weak under the table, and I had to remind myself to breathe. "I don't normally approach strangers," she continued, her voice soft now but edged with command, "but there was something about you I couldn't ignore." My stomach fluttered. Something about me? I felt naked beneath her gaze, exposed and vulnerable, yet safe in a strange way. My hand twitched, wanting to respond, to reach back, but I didn't dare. Isabel was patient in her dominance. She didn't need me to act. She already had me. She tilted her head slightly, observing me like she was studying a delicate piece of art. Then, without breaking eye contact, she leaned forward further, close enough that I could feel her breath against my cheek. My body reacted instantly, leaning slightly toward her without my consent, caught in the gravitational pull of her presence. Her fingers traced lightly along the back of my hand, a slow, deliberate movement. I swallowed hard, my lips parting slightly as the tension built inside me. I was trembling, captivated, and I knew she noticed. "You're nervous," she said softly, and it wasn't a question. "I like that." The words sent a shiver down my spine. I could feel her dominance in every subtle motion, the way her hand rested over mine, the way her gaze held mine, the way her body leaned closer with an unspoken command. My heart pounded. I wanted to pull away, but I couldn't. Every fiber of my being wanted to lean in, to submit to her control, to feel her presence entirely. She leaned slightly lower, brushing a loose strand of my hair back behind my ear with the tips of her fingers. My skin prickled at the touch. Her hand lingered for a moment before moving back to rest lightly atop mine. I couldn't breathe normally. She was close, so close that even sitting, I felt her control every inch of space between us. "Look at me," she whispered. I obeyed, captivated, unable to resist. And in that moment, all the cafe faded away. The golden light, the polished tables, the faint scent of coffee, they all dissolved until it was just Isabel and me. Her hand slid from mine to rest on my wrist, guiding it subtly as she leaned slightly closer again. I could feel the gentle pressure, not enough to hurt, but enough to command my attention fully. I was trembling, heart racing, entirely under her influence. "You're not used to this kind of attention, are you?" she asked, her lips brushing near my ear as she spoke, her breath warm against my skin. "I know," I whispered. My voice caught, betraying the intensity of my response. I felt small, exposed, yet drawn to her dominance. She chuckled softly, low and dark, like she was savoring every reaction she elicited from me. "Good," she said, "because I don't intend to let you go so easily." Her hand moved again, resting lightly on my forearm, guiding me subtly as she leaned back slightly, her gaze never leaving mine. I felt a pull I couldn't resist, a magnetic force of control and desire that made me weak at the knees. I wanted to obey, to submit fully to her presence, and yet a part of me was dizzy with anticipation, wondering what she might do next. Minutes passed, or perhaps it was an hour. I wasn't certain. Time seemed to stretch and bend around the intensity of her dominance, the subtle pressure of her hand, the heat of her presence. I was trembling under her gaze, captivated, enthralled, entirely under her control. Finally, she shifted slightly, leaning closer, resting her elbow on the table to bracket me subtly. I felt entirely encased in her presence, guided, restrained by nothing more than proximity and intention. My breathing was ragged, my chest tight, and yet every nerve in my body was alive with longing. "You'll remember this," she murmured, her dark eyes locking mine with commanding intensity. "This moment, this feeling, how it's impossible to ignore someone like me." I nodded slightly, unable to speak, my lips parting as I swallowed hard. The tension in the cafe was electric. The light, the warmth, the subtle smells of coffee and wood, it all faded into a single focus. Isabel. She finally released her hand from my wrist, letting it rest loosely atop the table, but her dominance lingered in every angle of her posture, in the way her gaze held mine. I felt both relief and longing simultaneously. My body was still trembling from the intensity of her presence, yet I was captivated, yearning for more, entirely under her spell. "I'll see you again, Luna," she said softly, standing gracefully, her dark brown dress swaying as she moved. "And next time, you'll know exactly what to expect." Her heels clicked against the floor as she walked toward the door, leaving me behind, trembling and breathless, my heart pounding in my chest. I watched her go, entirely consumed by the memory of her dominance, the weight of her presence, the undeniable pull she had over me. The train station café was empty once more, but the echo of her control, the heat of her touch, and the intensity of her gaze lingered. I knew, without a doubt, that I would come back, drawn to her dominance, captivated by her presence, and utterly entranced by the dark, magnetic pull that was Isabel. Even in solitude, even in the quiet moments of waiting for the train, I could feel her, guiding, commanding, drawing me entirely under her spell.
And I didn't want to resist.
Because I already belonged to her.